Hi, Year 7, Mrs. Hapley here to walk you through your next lesson of Year 7 Economics in Term 2, Week 2. I'll be going through the lesson plan, the slides, where to find all the resources you need for this lesson, just touching base on a few questions and concerns I've received so far in Week 2. Cool. So the learning intention, what we are trying to do this lesson is develop our knowledge of different types of work and how the work of an individual or business influences the economy. Success criteria. Hopefully by the end of this lesson, you will be able to define work. So what does work mean? Identify different job industries, so where people are working, different types of jobs, and changes to the workforce throughout history. So the impact of technology on work, which is very appropriate to be talking about given the impact of technology on school at the moment. We're at an e-learning, remote learning school. Lesson activities. Watch the video lecture, link will be below, and read through the class slides 19 through 26, to complete the questions and activities. Responses to these activities will be recorded in your digital notebook. Most students are completing activities in the notebook, which is excellent. A few students seem to be having trouble or a bit of confusion about where they need to put their notes or how to record their notes. So I'll be touching base with those guys by the end of this week. So, I mean, I've given you a bit of slack in week 1, but by week 2, I'm hoping you've put your notes into your digital notebook in Google Classroom. So student notebook, chuck your notes in there so I can see them, comment on them, just to make sure that you guys are engaged in the lessons. You will need access to chapter 20.7 of your textbook this lesson. So that looks a little something like this. So make sure you've got the textbook, the ebook on you before you sit down for this lesson. Just a reminder that the economics visual glossary assignment is due at the end of week 2. So if you have any questions or concerns about that learning task or how to submit learning tasks to Google Classroom, please let me know. So again, Semester 1 Economics Visual Glossary there. You can see I've got the due date Friday 5 p.m. 7:03, I've already had 9 people handed in, which is excellent. The rest of you guys have got a couple of days to finish your visual glossary. You just need to click on that. There'll be an option to view the assignment and to submit an assignment to hand it in. So upload a file, dunk, and I'll be able to view that and put the grades up for that ASAP. Cool. So without further ado, before I go any further actually, I should point out that this is 7F3's lesson plan, and it's going to be for period 1 and 5. So this is for the double period on Thursday. So don't go looking for another lesson. This is something that you can complete across 2 periods on Thursday. I don't want to give you guys too much work in one lesson. If you finish early, it gives you an opportunity to work on your visual glossary if you haven't already finished it. So yeah. And then for 7E4, you guys will also have 2 lessons to complete the lesson activities within this lesson plan. So don't freak out on Friday when you get this, like, oh, this is a lot of work. No, you'll have 2 lessons to work on that, and I'll make sure that's written clearly in the lesson plan. All right, so without further ado, this is the learning intention, success criteria just read through. I've also included a little blurb at the bottom there, just on what an instructional verb is. So when you guys take tests in whatever subject you're doing, really, you'll get these key words like define or identify or explain or compare, and those are called instructional verbs that you'll see in high school, university, teaching in a full-time job. And basically, why I've put this on this slide, as you can see, I've underlined define and identify there. When you guys have assessments in the future, there'll be questions on a test that will say define this, and it'll be worth 1 mark, and you just have to write a definition. So it's important to know what define means. There'll be questions that say explain this, and they might be worth 2 marks, and it's important to know the difference between offering a definition and explaining something, because that extra mark in that explain question is going to be knowing what the word explain means as opposed to define. But anyway, so what is work? The consumers and producers in an economy are all engaged in different types of work, so activities involving mental or physical effort to achieve a goal or a result. So it's important to note that work doesn't have to be physical. You can complete mental work. So my brother-in-law is an architect, so he's designing different buildings, different houses, bridges, etc. And he doesn't do much physical work there. He's just sitting on his butt at a desk. But there's lots of mental work, lots of designing and creating, and that is still technically work. It's also important to note that work is supposed to be achieving a goal or result. So that might be finishing a design, it might be creating a cake, it might be trying to earn an income, to earn money. So you're trying to achieve something through your work. The types of work people have completed throughout history has changed. In the past, our society was more dependent on manual labor. So in the past, you used to have to hunt for food, gather berries, plant seeds. It was a lot more farming based in the past. But in modern life, many jobs require the use of advanced technology and years of education and training at school, university, or TAFE. So the requirements for my job, at least, have changed throughout history. So these days, you need to complete several tests at university based on your maths and your English skills. They've extended the length of the university degree. So it used to be, it was 1 year, yeah, and now it's a 2 or 3 year course, depending on what you're doing. So that's just how work has changed throughout history. So it's become more technology based and it's become more skill based. You need to have more skill to complete these jobs because more people want those jobs. Anyway, so this is just a quick little activity. Get you guys thinking about jobs, have a bit of fun. Mr. Tapley got to test out his GIF or GIF skills, putting that into the slide there. But what we're doing on this slide and what you're doing in your notebook is A to Z job challenge, just a little brainstorm. So try and brainstorm a letter for every, try and brainstorm a job for every letter in the alphabet. That's your task for this slide. So this job can be a current role, current job that exists. It could be a job from history, like a knight for K. Just gave you an easy one there. Or perhaps invent a few jobs you believe will be created in the future. So if I had given this job challenge to students 20 years ago, and I had said, what's the job for the future? They might have said, well, maybe in the future we'll have smartphones, or maybe in the future we will have solar power, or something like that. So think about future technologies that might be created for some of those hard to think of letters. If you're struggling for ideas, yeah, that's what I just said. Way to go, Mr. Stepley. Complete list of jobs in your digital notebook. We will discuss these answers in our next lesson. Again, this is for a double period, what I'm doing today in this video. So if you'd like, you could complete this in period 1, and then wait it out for period 2, or you could just complete this and move on to the next activity. It's entirely you how you structure it, but you'll be completing all the activities in these slides across the double period. So up to you how you want to space it out. Depends on how you work best. So after you've done that, we're looking at the importance of work. So work is this. Why is work important? Well, to afford goods and services that meet our needs and wants, we will need money. We will need cash money. In working a job, you will be paid a salary or a wage that allows you to afford goods and services to enjoy a happy and healthy life. So one of the main reasons that people work is to afford these goods and services to meet their needs and wants. They need money. A job provides money through a salary or a wage. A salary is something that a lot of full-time workers will be paid once a fortnight or once a month. A wage is pretty much the same thing, but wages is more related to like hourly work. So something you'll get for working at McDonald's or at Woolworths or at Coles or something like that. So wage, think hourly. Salary, think full-time job. This arrangement is called paid labor or employment. In exchange for your work, your labor, you are compensated with money. There are other types of work, so voluntary work for charities, obviously you're not being paid there, it's a volunteer work. Self-employment, you're not getting paid a salary, you are the boss, it's your company, you are in charge, so your salary is whatever your business creates. Casual or part-time work, that's what I was talking about with the hourly work, like McDonald's or whatever. So your work hours will change, and you may not even work every day in a casual or a part-time job. So that will obviously impact your salary or your wage. You're not going to get paid for 5 days work unless you're working 5 days a week. An individual receives a salary or wage from their work, but how is work important for businesses and producers? How does work impact Glen Waverley, Melbourne, and Australia? So if the incentive for consumers to go to work is they get paid. But why is work important for business and producers? Well, this connects to the circular model of economics we examined previously. Businesses need workers to create goods and services to sell for money. So without work, businesses and producers don't have the ability to create and to produce the goods and services they need to get that money, get that income. So it's because of work that your house has furniture, electronics, internet, water, etc. It's because of work that your family can afford these products. And it's because of other people's work that those products were created and built in the first place. If businesses in a suburb lose their workers, they may shut down. You might have seen a bit of this with the coronavirus going on right now. This may lead people to avoid the suburb, hurting neighboring businesses. So this last paragraph is just looking at kind of like the long-term impact, the consequences of no work. Unemployed workers may be forced to move to a new city if closed businesses stop making a good, for example, toilet paper. This may lead to a shortage impacting everyone. So that last paragraph is kind of looking at the big long-term importance of work to everyone. So not just Glen Waverley, but Melbourne, Australia, the world. So if people stop working, obviously that business is going to shut down. People lose their jobs. If people stop working in a specific suburb, like everyone stops going to work in Glen Waverley, that might hurt businesses in Mount Waverley or Box Hill. Unemployed workers might be forced to even move to a new city, so that's going to be impacting the economics, the money, and the people in that city. So that was just the importance of work. Where do people work, though? Where do I move my little face to get out of the way here? That'll do. Where do people work? Different industries. So the different jobs people perform fit into industries. Mining, construction, retail, hospitality, education, etc. So there are different types of jobs, obviously, and there are different industries, different careers these fit into. So obviously, education would have teachers in it. It would also have librarians. It would also have admin staff, school nurses. All these people fit into the education industry. Mining would be people related to mining. Shockingly, construction, you'd be thinking about like tradies, laborers, plumbers, electricians. Retail, you're thinking about people who are working at shops, so JB Hi-Fi, people who work at H&M, Uniqlo, so think clothing products and goods and services there. Hospitality has to do with the service industry, so that's like food, so cafes, McDonald's, fancy restaurants, they're in hospitality. Those are just a few of the industries that exist. So the nature of work has changed dramatically. New industries have been created. So obviously we didn't have a very big industry for solar power 20 years ago or 50 years ago because it hadn't been invented. Old industries have been eliminated. So as the internet has become more and more popular and prevalent, other industries have been kind of wiped out. So what's a good example? So Netflix. Before we had Netflix, back in Mr. Tapley's days when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, we had something called Blockbuster Video. So you'd actually have to go and get a physical copy of a TV show or a movie. And as a new industry was created, so digital media with Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and all that, old industries have been eliminated. Advances in technology have completely changed some industries. So the phone industry used to be phones that were, landlines that were just in your house. It's now more focused on smartphones, obviously. These aren't the only changes. New values and attitudes of people have impacted women in the workforce, have impacted outsourcing of jobs to foreign nations. So the people who are actually working in the workforce has changed over time. And changes to safe working conditions have also occurred throughout history. So if you think the rooms and the portals are rough, look up child labor in the Industrial Revolution. We actually look at that in Year 9 Humanities, Year 9 History. We look at what child labor was in the Industrial Revolution. So, yeah, don't feel so rough when you go to school and the rooms are kind of crappy looking. Anyway, what I've got here is figure 6 from chapter 20.7. So I've stolen this picture straight from your textbook. I've just blown it up a little bit bigger so you can see what it actually says. And what this little graph is showing is the number of people employed, so who have jobs in different industries in Australia. And you can see down here, the different colors relate to different points in time. So it's showing you not only how those different industries have created and how big they are and jobs there, but how they've changed over time. So if I look at, for example, manufacturing. So red is the first dot we're looking at. So in 1990, 15% of all Australians worked in manufacturing. But then 10 years later, who taught me maths? 20 years later, that blue dot's going way down. Now we're just below 8% working in manufacturing. And then 2017, we've gone further down to like 7%. So it's interesting seeing how manufacturing jobs have decreased. Whereas if you look at, let's say, What's a good example? Healthcare. So medical professionals. In 1990, we were just at 8%. So all Australians, you had 8% of people working in healthcare. And then 2010, you've jumped up to like 11%. 2017, you've gone up to 13%. So that's increasing. So you can see how it's changing over time. Be gone, tapply face. There we go. What about no work? What about something called unemployment? So we talked about what work is and why it's important. What if we don't work? In Australia, the ABS, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, so it's a government organisation that kind of keep track of the numbers of employment and job-related numbers and statistics in Australia. They consider you to be part of the workforce if you are over 15 years of age and you are either employed, so you have a job, or you're actively seeking work. So that's their definition of being part of the workforce, so having a job, if you will. So you have to be over 15 years of age, and once you guys get to around 15, 16, you will see that, yeah, I can apply for a job at Macca's or Woolworths or wherever until I am over 15. And either they have a job or they're actively seeking a job, so they'll be part of the workforce. If you are not employed, not seeking a job, you're considered unemployed. The government will carefully watch unemployment levels to ensure the economy is safe and improving. If unemployment rises too high, everyone will be impacted. So that's why the Australian government, the ABS, look at unemployment and employment. Because if we don't look at unemployment, that number might keep rising. And the more unemployed people we have, the worse off our economy will be. So, a lot of information, which is why I'm stretching across the double period. My apologies. But what you'll be doing to finish off your double period, pardon me, is to read through chapter 20.7 in your Humanities textbook and answer questions 1, 2, and 4. In exercise 2, apply your understanding. So exercise 2, not exercise 1. Second thing you'll be doing is examining figure 6 from chapter 20.7. So that was the picture of the different industries I had on this slide. It's in your textbook. And you need to select 3 different industries on that image. In your notebook, brainstorm 3 different jobs within each industry. So for example, in healthcare, you could write doctors, nurses, surgeons. Except you can't write that because I've taken that example, so take that. So pick 3 different industries and 3 different jobs. Just a reminder that I will be checking your notebook. At the moment, I'm checking it once every couple of lessons. I'm trying to get down to once every lesson so I can actually get in there during the lesson and actually leave comments while you guys are writing them. That's my goal. But obviously at the moment we're all a bit busy, a bit stressed, and we're trying to figure out how to do this effectively. But yeah, notebooks will be checked once a week at least. So you guys need to be keeping up to date with these activities and these questions. And then of course, if you finish this stuff early, then you are welcome to work on the visual glossary, which we do on Friday. Or if you've already finished it, you can practice some self-care activities. Cool. I think that's the last thing I wanted to show you. I'll show you the actual questions, I suppose. So questions 1, 2, and 4 in exercise 2 of chapter 20.7. Cool. Question 1. So examine figure 1 and answer the following questions. Oh, I have to scroll back up to figure 1. So figure 1 looks like this. So that's that picture there. So you're looking at figure 1 for question 1. Identify the types of activities that each person performs. So the different activities they would perform in their job, or what looks to be their job in that photo. State what the activity would be. Is it voluntary or involuntary in each case? So are they being paid for their activity, or is it a charitable activity? C, explain how technology may have affected the work being done. So if you've got an image of a farmer, do you think technology would have changed that man's role or job? Tell me how. And then D, how may these jobs change in the future? So how do you think these jobs may change in the future? Give some examples. Question 2, examine table 1 and answer the following questions. Grumble, grumble, grumble. I have to go all the way up here. Zoomed in too much. Grumble, grumble. Wrong page. There we go. Example table 1. So that's showing job forces, labour force figures in Australia, January and February 2019. So the amount of people employed, unemployed, unemployment rate, so the percentage of people in the country who do not have a job, And then participation rate is participation, the amount of people who are participating in the economy, so working. And what you need to do for question 2, was there an increase or decrease in the number of people employed? By how much? Do a bit of maths. Was there an increase or decrease in the number of people unemployed? By how much? Straightforward stuff. And then question 4, examine figure 6 and answer the following questions. Has manufacturing increased or decreased? This is again looking at this image here, that's figure 6. The question's asking you, has manufacturing increased or decreased? To what can you attribute this change? So you might need to look up what manufacturing is. So manufacturing, very simple definition, is making things. If I manufacture something, I make something. So look at that. What other industries have shown a drop in numbers? So you're going to have to read the graph and see which numbers have decreased over time. So look at the line, look at where the colored dots on the line are to see if they've increased or decreased. Which industries have grown, so have increased in numbers, and then which industries show the greatest change. So that's a positive or a negative change. Which one has changed the most dramatically? And that's all you have to do for those chapter 20.7 questions. I believe I've touched on everything I wanted to in this lesson. Oh yes, I mentioned this in the previous video, but I just want to reiterate it for those of you who are still unaware. So you guys are completing your little student notebook where these questions are going. Mr. Tapley's uploading a teacher notebook. So I've got, instead of answering 27 questions 27 times, I've got a teacher version of the questions you guys have been completing in class. So you can see from the first lesson, those are the chapter questions we've done, and then I've uploaded my answers there, just so you have something to review to compare your questions to. And I'll be updating that once a week to make sure everyone has something to compare their notes to revise against, to etc. etc. So the teacher notebook's there, class slides are there, video lectures there, and yeah, I think that's all I want to say. If you guys have any questions, email me, comment in Google Classroom, comment on your notebook. A lot of people have been doing that. But best of luck, guys. Cheers.